Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Nas. Let's talk about what's next for MMA in 2022. MMA is at an all-time high and is screaming through the pandemic, with the UFC being relentless and not stopping. And in 2021, with a bunch of storylines and a bunch of things that were just amazing in the sport. A bunch of the organizations like the UFC, Bellator, PFL have been doing some amazing things. And then new organizations like Khabib Nurmagomedov's, signing fighters like Kevin Lee and others, planning out their season. Like I said, it's been a great year for MMA, and it's also included storylines from YouTubers like Jake Paul, who is known for fighting ex-UFC, ex-MMA fighters. And that is an interwoven story in MMA. So I wanted to make this podcast or video, if you're watching it on YouTube, about some of the storylines and things I wanted to watch out for in 2022. And this list is not in any particular order, but like I said, these are just things that have been building up, and I think that in 2022 we will either get an end to the story, we will figure out what's going on. And I think 2021 was such an amazing year with a bunch of storylines, and I don't want to make it seem like it's some sort of WWE or scripted thing, but there's a bunch of things that were going on and they're bubbling up. And I think in 2022 we could either get more added to that story, or we could figure out the apex. So let's get started with the list. The first thing that I want to talk about that I think is a big story for 2022 is the storyline and what's next for Leon Edwards. He was going to fight Jorge Masvidal. That one was playing out for a long time after Masvidal beat Darren Till, and behind the scenes got into a fight with Leon Edwards. This is something, like I said, has been culminating for a long time. Leon Edwards and maybe getting a title shot has been in the headlines and has been in the stories. People have been writing about this for a very long time. People have been talking about this for a very long time. So in 2022, I'd love to know what's next for Leon Edwards, what's next in his career. Hopefully he can get a fight in 2022 that doesn't get canceled. He was supposed to welcome Khamzat Chimaev to the next level and fight him. That one got canceled. He was supposed to fight Masvidal, like I said. That one got canceled. So I think what I'm really interested in is figuring out what is that next level fight for Leon Edwards, and will he be able to get a title shot? I know he's already lost to the current champion in Kamaru Usman, but what's next for Leon Edwards is a big story in many people's minds. They've been thinking about what's next for Leon Edwards for a long time. They know how spectacular of a fighter he is and how amazing he is. So I think that's one thing that we got to look out for, and that's one thing that we got to keep talking about, is what's next for Leon Edwards. I think that a Khamzat Chimaev fight for him would be perfect. Even though Chimaev is very much lower than him in the rankings, I I think that Leon Edwards versus him would boost up his stock even more. The Nate Diaz fight may have brought down his stock just a little bit, and even though he won that one, it was just the ending was a little bit rough on him. So I want to see what's next for Leon Edwards. We got a big list, so let's just keep on going through. I think that Dustin Poirier is the next person that I want to talk about in 2022. Now, I know he lost to Oliveira, but the reason why I wanted to put him on this list wasn't because of the next title aspiration that he has. I think this has kind of freed him up a little bit. Maybe he takes a fight with Nate Diaz next. Maybe he fights Conor McGregor next, which would be a big surprise. But figuring out where Dustin Poirier goes next, maybe he fights at 170, maybe he fights his former teammate in Colby Covington, which could shoot him up in the rankings at 170. He's getting big for that 155 pound weight class, but I think that the loss to Oliveira, even though it was hard for him and hard for a lot of fans that have been watching Dustin Poirier for a long time, I think it frees him up to fight some of these more fan-friendly fights. He's not looking for a title shot anytime soon. I bet you if you asked him, and you ask any fighter, they would love to go for that title shot. But losing to Oliveira, I think honestly frees him up for a lot more different fights, unconventional fights, and moving up and down in weight class, finding those people that he would normally not fight because he was looking for that title shot, and maybe even fighting someone again like Conor McGregor, or someone very different and not really in his radar, even though he's talked about him on Twitter and all these kind of things, like Colby Covington. The next person that I wanted to talk about that I'm really excited for in 2021 or 2022 is Khamzat Chimaev. Will he rise? Will he fall? I think this is the storyline. This is what I'm looking for in Khamzat Chimaev, is that he, after beating Lee, this is where his career can really, go to that next level. In terms of, if we were comparing him to someone else, this is Conor McGregor before he fought Chad Mendes. This is before the big money fights came in, and this is where he was just about to become the main attraction on most of these pay-per-view cards. This is a big test, and it could mean big business for Khamzat Chimaev. I think Leon Edwards would be a perfect test for him. I think that some of the fights that we've seen him in, like the Lee fight, has shown how ready he is for the moment, not just having the skills, but ready for the moment, ready for the big time, big lights, and then right after that having a wrestling match, which you won, which was in a different weight class than the one that he beat Lee in. It was at 185. He fights at 170 and 185. Man, this guy's on a tear, and I can't wait to see what's next for him. I think Khamzat Chimaev is big business, and for him to get to that next level and see if he can fight someone like a Leon Edwards, like maybe a Masvidal, like someone like that, is big business for Khamzat Chimaev. Can't wait to see. I think the next one that I want to talk about is Jake Paul. Now, even though he's not directly related to MMA, he has been fighting and hinting on fighting a lot of these MMA fighters. Who's next for Jake Paul? Is it going to be another quote-unquote fighter? I put the quote and asterisk behind the name of Tommy Fury, but could it be someone like Tommy Fury? Or could it be someone like Nate Diaz after Nate has the last fight on his contract with someone maybe like Dustin Poirier? Could it be someone like Anderson Silva, who's shown flashes of greatness in boxing, has done amazing things like beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And thoroughly defeating him? Could it be a fight, something like that? Who knows? But I think that Jake Paul's career, for the time being, is going toe-to-toe with the UFC's the way that they're moving. So whoever Jake Paul fights next, be it an old MMA fighter, be it someone like a Tommy Fury, I think it has and will affect MMA, and maybe even affect other organizations like Bellator. We don't talk about it that much, but there are a stable of fighters from Bellator who are under the Showtime banner that could fight Jake Paul next. So who may be, who knows? But I think that Jake Paul is something that MMA fans have to look out for, and you don't have to watch, but you have to pay attention. And I think something that goes toe-to-toe with that, like I said, the UFC could have some big names leaving, maybe even fighting Jake Paul. But I think it's a big storyline. It's something that a lot of people are going to talk about, especially with two names that are on the chopping blocks or thinking about leaving, like a Nate Diaz after his last fight in the UFC, or whatever his contract's like now, because maybe he declined to fight and they had to re-up the amount of fights he has left on his contract. Someone like Francis Ngannou, who might leave because of disputes with his management and the UFC. I just think that these two people leaving, and maybe some others, could be big for the UFC in a bad way. I'm not saying that the UFC is gonna sink or anything like that. I'm just saying that Nate Diaz is one exception, meaning that they could ring him out for as much as the UFC wants, in terms of the only thing that would be left on the table maybe was Conor Nate 3 if he leaves after fighting Dustin. But to have Francis Ngannou leave, the heavyweight champion that everybody's been dreaming of, the heavyweight with the six-pack that knocks out everybody, and he's just gonna leave on bad terms like this, and maybe join an organization like a Bellator or something like that. It's gonna be tough for the UFC. It's gonna be something that the UFC is gonna have to look out for. And I think that someone in their heavyweight prime, like Francis Ngannou, going to a different organization and maybe even getting beat over there, or maybe he's going around beating everybody and looking like a superstar, could really affect the UFC and the heavyweight division. Like I said again, this won't tank the UFC, but it will affect them, and it will affect future prospects. I think that's the big one that we got to look out in 2022. The last one that I want to talk about is maybe one of the bigger stories and one of the more exciting stories, and it's not one of these depressing things of people leaving or getting beat up by Jake Paul. It's Kamaru Usman being accepted in the MMA community as maybe the GOAT. Maybe he gets 3 fights in 2022 that could really cement him in that spot. He, in many people's eyes, is trailing behind a couple names. Some people say that Khabib is up there. A lot of people say that Anderson Silva is up there, GSP. He's behind those names, but he's clawing his way up there. And I think a string of great fights in his division, not moving up, not moving down, could really mean something for him. Maybe even Dustin Poirier fighting, like it could be a chess piece, or it could be a chess move where Dustin Poirier fights Colby Covington, maybe wins, and then maybe he gets to fight for the belt. That is it's a leap of faith. Maybe it's a big jump, but maybe something like that. Maybe someone coming down could fight Kamaru Usman. Maybe even Adesanya could come down and fight Usman. I know they in the past they talked about not fighting each other because of the whole being from the same country and all that kind of stuff, and being from the same area. But now I think they're more open, especially on the Usman side. He's talked about it multiple times. A fight like that could really cement Usman as the GOAT, or cement his place with the other contenders. So I think that's really exciting. I think that's something that we got to look out for in 2022. I wanted to make this short podcast / video about this kind of stuff. I'm really excited about 2022, especially what the UFC's got, what Bellator's got, what all these organizations have got. Really excited about that Khabib Nurmagomedov and his signings and what his organization is going to do. And just 2022 has a bunch of stuff that I didn't even talk about today that I'm excited about. And some of the fights that are coming down the pipe are going to be great. So thank you for listening, and thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. If you can subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, that really helps out the video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you're excited about in 2022, and we can talk about it. If you can give 5 stars on the podcast platforms and listen to it there if you would like, that would be amazing. You can also listen to it on the bodypunchpodcast.com if you don't have any of the other podcast platforms. But again, really appreciate you listening, taking the time. It's been amazing. 2021, can't wait for 2022. Thank you for listening. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.